There are missing person cases that unfold like a storm. Sirens, search dogs, news vans, a community mobilizing overnight. And then there are the quieter disappearances. The ones that happen in plain sight, in a town where everyone knows everyone, where the streets go empty by 10, and where a single unknown car stands out like a bruise. This story comes from a place like that. A small town in the Midwest, quiet, cautious, the kind of town where people still wave from their porches and still lock their doors anyway. And it starts with something we all trust, something we all carry, something we all use as proof that we exist in a certain place at a certain time. A phone. Because in this case, the phone becomes the only witness. And the witness tells two contradictory stories. One says he was home. The other says he wasn't alone. Ethan Walker was 29. He lived alone in a second-floor apartment in a building called Hollow Pines, a bland, beige complex built in the late 90s. Nothing special, nothing memorable. The kind of place you rent when you're saving money, keeping to yourself and planning to move someday. Ethan worked remotely as a systems analyst for a regional healthcare company based 2 states away. He had the kind of job that happens mostly behind a screen, network access, security protocols, troubleshooting. He wasn't famous. He wasn't wealthy. He wasn't the type to be in the middle of drama. His neighbors described him as polite and quiet. He picked up his packages quickly. He didn't throw parties. He didn't complain about noise. He kept his blinds half closed like someone who liked control over his space. His sister Megan was the one person he talked to consistently. She lived about 20 minutes away, had a family, a life, a routine. Ethan didn't visit often, but he checked in. Texts, quick calls, occasional memes. Ethan also had a small circle of online friends, people from gaming servers, work group chats, the kind of friendships that exist in typed messages and late-night voice channels. Real, but distant. No criminal record, no known enemies, no history of substance abuse, no signs of suicidal ideation according to his family, no giant debts, no messy breakup. He was stable. And that's why his disappearance doesn't make sense. Because when a person like Ethan vanishes, the question is, why would someone target him? The question is, what did he know or what did he see that made him worth the risk? The day Ethan disappeared was unremarkable. That's not just a phrase people use. It truly was. He clocked in remotely at 8:57 a.m. He attended a short team meeting. He fixed a minor access issue for a coworker. He ordered groceries through an app around lunchtime and had them delivered in the afternoon, an order that included coffee, frozen meals, and one odd item, a cheap pack of disposable batteries. Why the batteries mattered, nobody knew at the time. Later, he messaged his sister. Nothing dramatic. At 7:16 p.m., you still coming Sunday? At 7:18 p.m., yeah, probably. At 7:20 p.m., you good? At 7:21 p.m., just tired. The last part is important because tired is the easiest word in the world. It's a way to end a conversation. It's a way to avoid questions. But it's also a word people use when something is wrong and they don't want to explain. At 8:43 p.m., Ethan was active in a work chat. A coworker asked about a login issue. Ethan responded with a short message and a screenshot. Normal. At 9:07 p.m., Ethan's phone location, according to later records, placed him inside his apartment. The accuracy radius wasn't perfect, but it was consistent with him being home. At 9:47 p.m., his phone showed activity in a messaging app. At 9:49 p.m., the phone registered a GPS update, again placing him at home. At 9:52 p.m., his phone received an incoming call. That call lasted 7 seconds. 7 seconds is almost nothing, not enough time to talk, barely enough time to say hello. Sometimes 7 seconds is the amount of time it takes for a call to connect and then drop. But in this case, those 7 seconds would become the center of everything. Because in the morning, someone answered Ethan's phone. And it was Ethan. The next morning, Megan woke up and realized she hadn't heard from her brother. That doesn't sound like a big deal, but Megan said Ethan always sent a morning check-in message, especially on weekdays. So she called him. The phone picked up immediately. No ringing. No voicemail. Just connection. A male voice said, "Hold on." It was Ethan's voice. Megan froze. She asked, "Who is this?" Silence, like the person on the other end was covering the microphone or turning away. Then the voice came back and said, "I'll pass it on." The call ended. Megan called again. This time it went straight to voicemail. That moment, those few seconds, became the first hard evidence that something was wrong. Not Ethan overslept. Not Ethan forgot to charge his phone. Not Ethan is busy. Someone had his phone. Someone answered. Someone spoke. And the words "I'll pass it on" sound like what? Like a message. Like an order. Like a transaction. Or like someone improvising, because they didn't expect Megan to call. Megan reported it to the local police department. She told them Ethan was missing and that someone else answered his phone. The response was slow. A desk officer told her, "Adults have the right to leave." Another said, "Phones get stolen all the time." One asked, "Is it possible he went out drinking?" Megan insisted Ethan didn't drink much. But without signs of violence, without proof of abduction, police categorized it as a welfare check. They said they'd send someone by. They didn't show up until the following day. And in those lost hours, the case drifted away from the moment where it could have been solved. When officers finally entered Ethan's apartment, nothing screamed crime scene. No broken door. No blood. No overturned furniture. The place was tidy in a quiet person way, minimal clutter, everything in its place. But there were details that didn't fit. Ethan's laptop was on, screen still active, not locked. A browser tab was open to a basic search page, as if he'd been about to type something but stopped. His coffee mug was half full and cold. A spoon sat beside it, used once, then left. His wallet was on the table. That mattered because people who disappear voluntarily usually take their wallet. His car keys were in a small bowl by the door. His jacket was still hanging up. If Ethan walked out on his own, he did it without his keys, without his wallet, and without his coat, on a night that dropped into the low 40s. But the biggest absence was obvious. His phone was gone. Police documented the apartment with photos, noted the missing phone, and left. They told Megan what people in small towns get told all the time. He's an adult, he might come back. Megan pushed for more. She asked about the strange call. She asked if they'd pull tower data. She asked if they'd canvass neighbors. The lead officer told her, "We'll look into it." And then the case stalled. Because in the system, a stall is a kind of death. A week later, Megan contacted Ethan's phone carrier herself. She wasn't supposed to be able to get much, but she had access through a family plan from years ago. Enough to ask questions. Enough to request a basic activity summary. The carrier confirmed the timeline. 9:52 p.m. Incoming call 7 seconds. Multiple location pings after that night. And something else. The phone powered on and off in patterns. Over the next 2 days after Ethan disappeared, the phone turned on 6 separate times. Each time, it stayed active only for a few minutes. No outgoing calls. No texts. No app activity visible in basic logs. Just presence. Like someone was checking something. like someone was making sure the phone still worked, or like someone was testing whether it was being tracked. The pings hit different parts of town: a parking lot near a closed grocery store, a residential street near an old railroad line, a stretch of highway shoulder, a neighborhood park after dark. None of these places were tied to Ethan. What's more, the timing of the pings was weirdly consistent, often near the top of the hour. That sounds small, but it's not, because people don't naturally behave like that. Machines do. A person might turn a phone on randomly, but turning it on in neat, short windows at consistent intervals feels planned. Or automated. Megan brought this to the police. They shrugged it off. They said without the phone itself, they couldn't do much. But that wasn't true. They could have requested tower dumps. They could have pulled CCTV from those ping locations. They could have checked license plates. They didn't. And that became the second major mistake. 12 days after Ethan disappeared, his coworker Ryan got a message on a work chat platform. It came from Ethan's account. It said, "Did you hear it too?" That was it. Ryan stared at it for a moment and typed back, "Hear what? Where are you?" But before he could send a second message, Ethan's message disappeared. Deleted. Not unsent by platform error, deleted. Ryan contacted Megan immediately. Megan forwarded the screenshot to police. They told her accounts get hacked. But Ryan and Megan pointed out something. Ethan's company used two-factor authentication. If someone logged into Ethan's work chat from a new device, it would have triggered alerts. It would have required a confirmation. The company's IT team checked. No unusual logins. Which meant one of two things. Either Ethan himself typed that message, then deleted it, or someone had access to a device already authenticated. A device like Ethan's phone. A month after Ethan went missing, a neighbor came forward. Her name was Linda, mid-50s, the kind of person who watches the parking lot because there's not much else to watch. Linda said on the night Ethan disappeared, she heard voices outside around 10 p.m. She looked through her blinds and saw Ethan standing near the building entrance. He had his phone to his ear. He wasn't walking. He wasn't packing. He was standing still. Linda said he looked stiff, like he was listening carefully. She watched for maybe 10 seconds. Then she saw something else, a vehicle she didn't recognize. A dark van. Not a work van with logos. Not a moving truck. Just a dark van parked in a way that blocked part of the lot light. She couldn't see a plate. And then Ethan stepped out of frame toward the van. Linda assumed it was someone Ethan knew. She went back to bed. Police took Linda's statement but didn't treat it as urgent. They noted it, added it to the file, and moved on. Months later, when Megan asked why they hadn't canvassed for camera footage near the parking lot, an officer told her, "We didn't have enough to go on." But they did. They had a van description, a time window, a phone ping pattern, a deleted message. It just wasn't being connected. Hollow Pines had cameras in the lobby and facing the parking lot. Cheap ones, grainy, often broken. At first, management told police the cameras weren't working that night. 3 months later, the complex upgraded its security system. In the process, a maintenance guy discovered the old DVR had been recording after all, just not uploading properly. Police recovered footage. And this is where everything changes. Because on the recording, Ethan appears. He exits the building at 9:58 p.m. He stops. He looks to the right. He pauses like he's listening. Then he lifts his hand, holding something small. His phone. He extends it out, towards someone off camera. Then he steps forward and follows. 12 seconds. That's all they got. But in those 12 seconds, you can see something you don't expect in a voluntary disappearance. Hesitation. Ethan doesn't walk out like a man going to meet a friend. He looks like a man responding to a signal. Like a man waiting for permission. Police tried to adjust the footage, zoom in, stabilize it. They still couldn't identify the person off camera. But the angle suggested whoever Ethan approached was standing just outside the light pool of the parking lot lamp, intentionally. Someone who understood where the camera was. Someone who knew how to avoid it. Megan still had the recording of the strange call. She recorded it on speakerphone the moment the unknown man answered. Police sent it for audio review. The conclusion was strange but clear. The voice was real. No obvious signs of voice synthesis. No robotic artifacts. No digital warping. It was a human voice. But analysts said it had an odd quality, like the person was speaking quietly but close to the mic, controlling volume. Not panicked. Not rushed. Controlled. And that fits the words. Hold on. I'll pass it on. Those aren't the words of someone who stole a phone and got caught. Those are the words of someone who believes they have authority over the situation. And in cases like this, authority is often the most dangerous weapon. Eventually, police pushed a simple narrative. Ethan left on his own. He didn't want to be found. Maybe he met someone. Maybe he had a secret life. This is the kind of theory that sounds reasonable until you stack facts. If Ethan left voluntarily, why leave behind wallet, keys, code, laptop unlocked, and then allow someone else to answer his phone? If Ethan left because he wanted to disappear, why would his phone turn on in the city in short bursts, like bait? If Ethan left to start over, why would his work account message, "Did you hear it too?" and then delete it? And most importantly, if Ethan left on his own, why did the phone ping back at his apartment 11 days later? Because yes, 11 days after he vanished, the phone produced one final location event. Right at Hollow Pines. The carrier logs showed it clearly. A brief power on. A quick handshake with the network. A location fix. Then nothing. The phone returned. Ethan didn't. A person trying to vanish doesn't return their phone to the crime scene. A person trying to send a message does. Remember the batteries Ethan ordered the day he vanished. At first, Megan didn't think anything of it. People buy batteries, it's normal. But then she remembered something. Ethan had texted her a month earlier complaining about the hallway motion lights at Hollow Pines. They were inconsistent. Sometimes they turned on, sometimes they didn't. He joked about how the building felt like a horror game, because parts of the hallway would go dark if the sensor didn't trigger. Ethan ordering batteries could mean nothing. Or it could mean he was preparing for something. Power outage, device, flashlight. Police never collected the battery pack. It remained in Ethan's apartment, unused. Which raises another question. If Ethan bought batteries for himself, why didn't he use them? Unless he never got the chance. In most missing person cases, there's a search. Volunteers, dogs, flyers, drones. In Ethan's case, the search was minimal. Police did a basic sweep of nearby wooded areas, but not the kind of grid search that finds evidence. No deep dive, no heavy coordination. And because it's a small town, resources were limited. Megan tried to organize her own search. Friends of the family walked trails, checked ditches, looked near the railroad tracks. But without official coordination, it was chaotic. And the longer you wait, the more the environment erases what you need. Footprints fade. Weather destroys scent trails. Time kills leads. By the time the case became serious in the department, it was already cold. 6 months later, another witness came forward. A night shift worker at a gas station near the highway said that on the night Ethan vanished, around 11 p.m., a man came into the store looking, shaken. He didn't buy anything. He just stood near the drink coolers staring. The employee asked if he was okay. The man said, "Did you hear that?" The employee asked, "Hear what?" The man looked confused and said, "Never mind," and left. The employee couldn't confirm it was Ethan. He wasn't sure, but the phrase matched the message Ryan got. "Did you hear it too?" This introduces a chilling possibility. What if there was a sound? Not metaphorical, not emotional. A real sound. Something Ethan heard that night. Something that made him step outside. Something that someone else heard too. And if that's the case, then the message, "Did you hear it too?" isn't random. It's a clue. Eventually, after pressure from Megan and local media, police requested a tower dump for the area around Hollow Pines. A tower dump is basically a list of devices that connected to a cell tower during a certain time frame. It can help identify unknown phones in a zone. But tower dumps are most useful immediately. In Ethan's case, by the time they ran it, the window was too broad, the data was messy, and the time delay made it hard to connect. Still, one thing stood out. There was a device that appeared in the area at around 9:55 p.m., right before Ethan exited the building, then disappeared from the tower coverage minutes later, moving quickly toward the highway. The number was unregistered, prepaid. Police tried to subpoena more. The trail stopped. And that's when Megan started to suspect something darker. That whoever took Ethan understood exactly how to avoid being found. The camera footage from Hollow Pines shows Ethan leaving. But it doesn't show the most important part. What happens next? He steps into darkness. And in that darkness, the possibilities multiply. Did someone approach him calmly and ask him to come outside? Did someone claim to be police? Did someone threaten him? People underestimate how powerful a simple statement can be. "If you don't come outside, your sister will get hurt." "I'm downstairs, I need your help." "I have your phone records, open the door." "Don't call anyone." Any of those could pull someone out of an apartment if the person believes the threat is real. And once you get them outside, away from locks and walls, you control the scene. This is where U.S. audiences lean in. Slow down here. Let it breathe. Theory 1, the lure. Someone wanted Ethan outside. They didn't break in. They didn't force the door. They used the phone. An incoming call at 9:52 p.m. A quick 7-second connection, just enough to deliver one sentence. "Come outside." That would explain why Ethan left without keys, wallet, or coat. Because he expected to return in seconds. But why the van? Why the off-camera handoff? Because the lure wasn't, "Come outside to talk." It was, "Come outside to give me your phone." Which leads to the next theory. Theory 2, the phone was the target. What if Ethan wasn't the target? What if his phone was? His job involved system access, security, credentials. If someone needed access, a phone can be the key. Two-factor authentication codes, email confirmations, saved passwords. If you take Ethan's phone, you might gain access to systems he uses. That would explain why the phone powered on in short bursts. Maybe the person was waiting for authentication prompts. Maybe they were testing accounts. Maybe they were trying to get into something Ethan protected. And that would explain the message to Ryan. Did you hear it too? Maybe it wasn't a sound. Maybe it was a notification, an alert, a security warning, something Ethan heard digitally before he vanished. Theory 3. Impersonation. The voice on the phone. Hold on. I'll pass it on. Those words sound like someone pretending they're in a position of authority. Not a random thief, not a teenager, not someone nervous. Someone calm. That raises a terrifying possibility. What if the person who answered Megan's call wasn't improvising? What if they believed Megan was calling because she had been instructed to? As in, if anyone calls, tell them you'll pass it on. A script. Because scripts mean planning. Theory 4. The sound. The recurring phrase, did you hear it too? If a sound triggered this, something like a mechanical hum, a high frequency, a signal, then we're in a different category. There are documented cases where people report strange sounds linked to industrial sites, failing infrastructure, or even psychological phenomena. But if more than one person independently references hearing something, that suggests a real event. Maybe Ethan heard something outside his building. Maybe he heard something from his phone. Maybe he heard something that made him step out. And maybe whoever took him used that same sound as a tool. Theory 5. He followed someone he trusted. The footage shows Ethan handing his phone to someone off camera. That isn't normal behavior with a stranger. People don't just hand their phone to a stranger in a dark parking lot. Unless they believe the person is legitimate. A police officer, a building manager, a delivery driver with a problem, a neighbor asking for help. If the person claimed they needed Ethan's phone for something, verification, contact, proof, Ethan might comply. But if that person was trusted, why can't anyone identify them? Because sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who blend in. Here's the part that scares investigators. Ethan may have been alive after he vanished. The phone ping suggests movement. The message suggests awareness. And if someone else had the phone, they might have been close enough to use Ethan's accounts. Or Ethan himself might have been forced to. Think about how control works. If someone is holding you, they might allow you to send one message. But only under supervision. Only quickly. Only something vague. Did you hear it too? That could be a cry for help coded as confusion. And then the message gets deleted. Because the person supervising him sees it. Or because Ethan deletes it out of fear. Either way, it means he wasn't gone instantly. He was in between. And that's the worst place to be. 11 days after Ethan disappeared, the phone returned to Hollow Pines. Not physically found, not left on a doorstep. But the network saw it. A brief power on. A location ping. Right back at Ethan's building. Then silence forever. That is not an accident. It's a message. A warning. Or a way to end the chase. Because if you're trying to keep someone from tracking you, you might want the phone to appear back where it started. It confuses the timeline. It muddies the map. It resets the story. And if investigators are lazy or overwhelmed, they might take it as proof that Ethan staged it. But returning the phone location to the apartment doesn't clear anyone. It implicates someone who knew exactly where the apartment was. A year passes. Megan posts flyers until her hands hurt. Local media covers it briefly, then moves on. Police rotate staff. A new detective inherits a folder. The case becomes a set of papers. A missing adult report. A note about a strange call. A witness statement about a van. A short video clip. A vague deleted message. and a handful of confusing phone pings. No body, no weapon, no named suspect. And without a suspect, there's no urgency. This is how cases die. Not with an ending, with paperwork. Years later, a retired officer spoke off the record to a local journalist. He said something that never appeared in the official report. We treated the phone like it was evidence, but we never treated it like it was a person. He meant this. The phone was acting like someone was using it to communicate. Turning it on, turning it off. Letting it be seen, then disappearing again. It wasn't random. It was a presence. And the last line the officer said was the one that sticks. We never figured out who answered that call. Because if you figure out who answered the call, you figure out where Ethan went. So here's what we know. Ethan's phone says he was home at 9:49 p.m. A call hits at 9:52 p.m. and lasts 7 seconds. A witness places him outside near 10 p.m. Cameras catch him handing his phone to someone off camera. The phone appears around town in short bursts like bait. A message from his account says, "Did you hear it too?" and then vanishes. And 11 days later, the phone pings back at his apartment one last time. That's the timeline. But the timeline doesn't explain motive. Was Ethan targeted for what he knew? Was he lured outside by someone pretending to be an authority figure? Was the phone the real target, access, credentials, something locked behind his identity? Or is the phrase, "Did you hear it too?" pointing to something else entirely? Because if Ethan heard something, then this wasn't just a disappearance. It was an extraction, a controlled removal of a person from safety, using the one thing we trust more than locks: communication. And if that's true, then the scariest part is this. How many people would step outside if their phone rang? And how many would do it without thinking? Beat. If you had to pick one theory, what do you think happened to Ethan Walker? And who was the voice that answered his phone?